Welcome to Wanies Academy, and you're welcome to our biology class. Today, in our lesson today, we're going to be talking about interdependence. And our objectives for today's lessons are, at the end of the lesson, you should be able to understand how living organisms rely on each other and their environment for survival. You should be able to describe how food webs are made up of a number of food chains. And also, you should be able to understand the importance of interdependence. So, what is interdependence? Interdependence within an ecosystem refers to the way by which different organisms rely on each other for survival. Somehow everything rely on each other for survival. So let's look more and let's learn more about this. This interconnectedness means that changes to one population can affect others. That is highlighting how balanced ecosystems are crucial for all life within them. Speaking about ecosystem, what is an ecosystem? An ecosystem is a community of living organisms interacting with each other and their non-living environment. When we say this in simpler terms, we mean how living organisms, that is the biotic factors, kind of like depend on the non-living factors, that is the abiotic factors, for there to be an equilibrium in the ecosystem. So ecosystem simply means the relationship or the interrelationship between the living components and the non-living components coming together to make a balance. For instance, when we talk about the living components or the biotic factors, what are we talking about? We're talking about the living things, the living organisms, plants, animals, all the species. But when we talk about the non-living components, what do we mean? Here we are talking about the non-living environment. Example, the air, sunlight, temperature, pressure. These are what we mean by the non-living components. So let's go further. In an ecosystem, talking about interdependence, there is something known as the food chain and the food web. Food chain, this is what I mean. And we have also the food web. Have you heard about these words before? Okay, it's fine. I will be explaining them out to you. So when we talk about food chain, what do we mean? In an ecosystem, there must be a food chain. Why? Because there are living things in this ecosystem. So all living things must feed. Remember, that is part of the characteristics of a living thing. So when we talk about the food chain, this is exactly what we're talking about. Take a look at this beautiful diagram right here. It is talking about the food chain. You can see it starts from a producer right here. This is a green plant. And then a primary consumer, a secondary consumer, tertiary consumer, a quaternary consumer, and finally a decomposer. So let me explain this for you. In every ecosystem, there is always a producer. Examples of producers, we have the green plants. Green plants are generally or basically the producers in an ecosystem because they get direct energy from the sunlight. As you can see right here in this diagram, it is getting its energy from the sunlight and it has more energy than any other consumer in the ecosystem. So next comes the primary consumer. This is a green plant. What can feed on a green plant? Very correct. A grasshopper, you guessed right. Yeah, so a grasshopper can feed on the green plants. And then what can feed on this grasshopper? A toad or a frog? Anyone can feed on this grasshopper. Then what in turn can also feed on this toad? Good, a snake. Absolutely correct. So this snake feeds on this toad, then what can feed on this snake? Good. This eagle can feed on this snake. So you see how food energy is being transformed or transferred from one organism to another. And as it goes higher, the energy reduces. You need to note this down. As it goes higher, the energy reduces. So this is simply what we mean by a food chain. A food chain is a simple feeding relationship. Okay? It's a very simple feeding relationship that shows how food energy, not energy, how food or how organisms feed on each other in each trophic level. Okay? When I say trophic level, this is what I mean in each trophic level. So a trophic level is these arrows pointing to the next organism. This is exactly what I mean by a trophic level. Okay, so from one trophic level to another. This is for food chain. What is a food web? If you have an idea of what a food chain is, then you are absolutely correct. You know what a food web is. A food web is just a complex feeding relationship. While a food chain is a simple feeding relationship, a food web is a complex feeding relationship. A food web is a complex feeding relationship. Okay, so you should note this down. It will really be of much importance. A food web is a complex feeding relationship which shows more than one organism feeding on a particular organism. Let's take a look at these diagrams right here. Okay, let's use this for instance. This is a grass. This is also a grass. In a food chain, it will just show you only one organism feeding on this grass. But in a food web, we bring all together all the possible organisms that can possibly feed on the grass. So in this food web, we have a grasshopper, we have a mouse, we also have a rabbit. All these can feed on this grass. Okay, I'm sure you get the idea now. So when all these feeds on this grass, then what in turn can feed on them makes up a food web. I'm very sure you now understand what we mean by inter what we mean by interdependence within an ecosystem. These actually bring balance in the ecosystem, whereby all organisms, in one way or the other, depend on the other for survival. Okay, so having said that, we're going to be stopping our class here for today. I hope you enjoyed the class. Okay, before we go, I would love to ask you a few questions. All right, so my first question is, what do we mean by the word interdependence within an ecosystem? Okay, very correct. It is simply the way by which different organisms rely on each other for survival. Okay, what is a food chain? It is a simple feeding relationship that shows how organisms feed on each other along the trophic level. Thank you so much for joining our classes today. Hope to see you in our other class, in more classes. Thank you once again, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you for watching. Bye.